Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/PettyRevenge. In today's episode, don't use me to parent your kids. Found this absolute gold in AITA. Petty divorce revenge. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Don't use me to parent your kids. I have dwarfism, and this often leads to weird interactions in public, especially with kids. Sometimes a kid comes up to me to ask me why I'm so short, and I have a pre-prepared response for that, but most of the time they just loudly ask their parents why I'm so short. Usually the parents will awkwardly drag their kids away, telling them not to comment on people in public, which is sad but understandable. I like the parents who just say something about how some people are born like this, and even though we look a bit different, we're still regular people just like everyone else. Sometimes I hear a gem like, "I bet he shrank in the wash." What I can't stand is when people try to use me to parent their kids. I'm sure you can think of ways to convince your kids to finish their plate at dinner that don't involve pointing at a dwarf in public and saying that's what happens when you leave food on your plate, or he didn't listen to his mommy when she told him to eat all his vegetables. It's rude, it's humiliating, and it teaches your kid that differences are a bad thing and that people are at fault for their differences or disabilities. It just pisses me off. A few days ago, I was in public and a kid who was maybe 4 or 5 years old was acting out, and his mom was clearly struggling to keep him under control. So she pointed to me and told her son that I was one of Santa's elves, and I was watching him and would tell Santa about his behavior. The kid's name was on a key ring on his backpack, so I just said, "It's okay, Hunter, you're already on the nice list, and Santa told me you're getting an iPad this Christmas." Hunter was excited. His mom was not. My son asked why a man was so short. All I thought to say was because he wasn't tall. My son accepted that with no questions. Sometimes simplicity is all you need. That is awesome. My cousin was definitely of the "hey, people come in all shapes and sizes" with her son. But she could not get his 3 or 4-year-old self to stop staring at a guy in a wheelchair when they were standing on a sidewalk, I think waiting for a parade or something. He started to ask questions and my cousin shushed him, and the man said that it was okay, at his age, questions were natural and understandable. He was missing a leg. Well, to both their surprise, he wasn't at all curious about the missing leg, because people come in all shapes. He was fascinated by his wheels. Kiddo had been bitten by the obsessed by all vehicles bug thanks to Grandpa, and I think even asked him if it had gears, etc. When the guy popped a wheelie, my cousin said her kid practically exploded with excitement, and she got an immediate request that he wanted a wheelchair too so he could learn to do that. It tickled the guy, thankfully. Thank you for the parenting advice, taking this on board. I like the parents who just say something about how some people are born like this, and even though we look a bit different, we're still regular people just like everyone else. I hadn't thought of how to explain this to my daughter yet, but putting this in my mental safe to use should the situation come up. Your quick wit was epic in response to Hunter's mom. Sorry to hear about the derogatory and insulting things people say because of your physique. That is not okay in any way, shape, or form. I'm sorry, but I'm dying at "I bet he shrank in the wash." 2 lessons in 1, the insensitive comments about you, and the perils of putting kids' names on their property. The perils of putting kids' names on their property while being an asshole to others in public *. The way the mom spoke about you was dehumanizing. Your comeback was perfect. My family used to do this to me with someone with albinism. They convinced me if I was bad, they would send me to his house and he would eat me. This was horrible to experience as a child and took a lot of work to undo. I still have a ton of unconscious bias that I have to unwind from their attempts to parent me. I may be the weird kind of albino, but I systematically despise eating children. Just so you know, some of us are safe. Found this absolute gold in AITA. I travel for work and the guys I travel with are closer to me than family in most cases. I haven't been home in almost 6 months, stuck out here on the road working 70 plus hours a week. We got this temp several months ago who was rather rotund, much like I am. Anyway, someone made the comment that he could be my kid and he ran with it. So for over a month I have been dealing with him calling me father, daddy, and other names. I have asked him to stop ever since he started with this behavior. I have tried to nip it in the bud without being too much of a dick. My boss has even gotten into calling me his dad, though not very often. It is driving me crazy. Now to the part where I may be the AH. If he wants me to be his daddy, I will be. One morning before the daily safety meeting he started up with his bullshit, and so I finally publicly accepted that he was in face my son. Then described how he came about, in front of everybody. I explained how I had too many beers one night and went to Taco Bell. The next morning, as I woke feeling like I was going to die and a huge knot in my gut, I made my way to the restrooms, and after many prayers and promises to never do this again, the good Lord gave me a reminder. Him. Born through the stress and labor of an alcohol-induced drunken night of the world's worst fast food and pretty decent beer. My son arrived with the stench that honestly made me want to hurl, and the amniotic fluid that was made from the unholy union of IPA and chicken burrito supreme. My asshole baby. The butthole messiah. No mother carried him. No mother cared for him. The existence he has came from only me, beer, and a culinary mistake. Now everyone is calling him Taco Bell, or as I said earlier, the butthole messiah. He asked me to stop and I told him I couldn't deny my child anymore. He doesn't talk to me much anymore, but I really don't care. My boss asked me to stop this, as if I could at this point. I asked him where he was the whole time I protested. He didn't say anything. Anyway, I await your judgment. Am I the AH for bringing the butthole messiah into this world? NTA, he who plays with fire has to accept the consequences. Taco Bell makes the holy ring of fire through which our butthole messiah descended with a heavenly splash, much to OP's relief. NTA weaponized nicknames are a weapon that can turn like wildfire. Something he was happy to ignore until he was outmatched. Fight fire with fire. Like cures like. Take a hair of the dog that bit you. One nail drives out another. This was my way to deal with name calling when I was a teen. Give back a better nickname than you were given and make it stick. Use your intelligence better than they use theirs. I knew a gal with middle name Michael, I don't know why. Her little sister started using it instead of her very feminine first name. So Michael started calling little sis George. Surprise! George stuck and Michael never did. This is great. We had a guy in my platoon called Ass Eyes. After a while our lieutenant asked Hughes to change his name. Shortly after, a pair of skid-marked whitey tighties fell out of his rucksack, like manna from heaven. This was in the early 2000s when Kid Rock was everywhere, so Ass Eyes became Skid Rock. Our lieutenant picked up on Skid Rock and asked where that came from. After it was explained in detail by our corpsman, he immediately said, "Go back to Ass Eyes." We had a dude in boot camp called Shit Nuts. Laundry came back and was being tossed out onto people's racks. Little guy named Sheehan shouted, "How do you get shit on your nuts?" Everyone died laughing as he ran around holding them up. Belonged to a kid named Mean. He was upset today the least. The name found him in the fleet, on his first duty station not even a year out of boot camp. Would have felt bad for the guy, but he was an asshole. Very eloquent and roundabout way to call him a piece of shit. Petty divorce revenge. My now ex-husband left me in $10,000 debt when we split. He refused to work, which is what put me in debt. He didn't want cards in his name cause I worked, not him. I am much better financially now than when we were together, so solicitors' fees haven't impacted me nearly as much. For the last 18 I have forced him to pay over $4,000 just in solicitors' fees, to have to pay me half the remaining debt. Why is it petty? I've spent $4,000 making him pay $4,000 just to pay me $4,000. And I would do it all over again even though I'm not actually making any money out of it because now he's out 8K. So you found a legal way to get blood out of a turnip? The first time I read this I read so you found a legal way to get blood out of a Trump, biggest laugh I've had all day. Then I realized I misread it and started laughing all over again. I did the same to my ex. She tried to screw me over on the debt from our marriage, and by the time I was done with her she got less than half of what she asked for and paid twice as much to get it. No job and wanting you to apply for credit cards that he is going to use? That should have been the red flag that he is a gold digger. Trauma. Unfortunately, a life of trauma taught me all the wrong things about love. In a much better place now with more therapy to stop that type of relationship happening again. I'm 36 with no debt, but I also have no credit. My STBXH is drowning in debt and court fees and a lot of legal expenses. I'm being kind enough to give him a few months before I serve the papers. I have not seen him since 2018. We are legally separated. But damn, karma got him good. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.